Hey, everybody, welcome to Journey Through the Generations. And we're back with another episode of the podcast. And today we are going to be talking about COVID
Yes,
and
we
the
are.
yes, and the impact that it has had on genealogy research, and then also how we think it'll impact research going forward.
Yes, we didn't think that we needed to not talk about COVID because let's face it, 2020 was the year for the ages that everybody is going to remember and talk about and tell stories about to their grandchildren about how, Major League Baseball shut down, Disney shut down, Broadway shut down. And of course, that meant the libraries closed too. So, 2020 just affected everything, and that included genealogy.
Yes, and I mean, I just, I still can't believe it.
It's hard
Actually,
to believe
it
that we
really
lived
is.
through something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it seemed like it did. Every single day, something announced shutting down or closing or something like that. I
That
mean,
had never closed before.
yeah, it just went
It was
ballistic.
like dominoes falling.
And so in the genealogy world, all we started seeing every day was conferences canceling and most of them going virtual.
Yes,
Libraries closing. I mean, it was just
it was
crazy
crazy.
what was happening. And so, um, you know, that that had a big impact on people because people like to go to conferences
Right.
and people like to go to libraries and family history centers and things like that to be able to research their family. And a lot of times that stuff is not available online.
Right.
You have
That's
to
why you're going
go,
to the library.
yes, you have to go to the library and research with microfilm and
Right.
stuff like that. And so, so yeah, that impacted everything in the genealogy community.
Right. And as a family historian, this chapter of, our lives and American history is going to be in history books one day. And, I just kept thinking this whole time that, my grandkids are going to come home and say, what do you remember about 2020? We were talking about it in about a pandemic or something. And this is going to be the talks that, I had with my grandparents about where were you when JFK died and things like that. So it's not only important for, history, but for our family stories and things like that, preserving them.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those times in genealogy and family research that people who died from COVID complications, like we look at the what's it called, the Spanish flu,
Spanish flu, right.
like you you're going to see
Right.
that on death records and things like that. Well, you're going to see that for people who passed away in 2020 as
Right.
well, in
It's
way down in the
right
future.
down the road.
But
And our, vaccine cards, that's going to be
yeah, that's
documents
crazy.
that people are going to be looking for in 50 and 60 years when they're researching their family and they find out about this pandemic of 2020 and they're going to be like, oh, well, let's see if, Grandpa Cummins had a vaccine. Let's look for his vaccine card. So it all kind of ties together.
Yeah. A lot has happened in the last 13 to 14, 15 months, maybe a little bit longer. If you listen to some people who say that they had COVID back in November of 2019,
Right. It's
which
called COVID-19 for a
which I
reason.
don't doubt that at all. But yeah, a lot happened, and so it impacted the community, and so we don't want to see that happen again.
Right.
I'm not trying to live through anything like
No.
this again. So, so yeah, let's talk about how this impacted our particular research
Correct.
and our journey.
Yes. And I'll always like to start when we start talking about this is we had just left Roots Tech 2020.
Oh my God!
We got back on March 1st, 2020, and we
Yes.
were on a genealogy high. We had a great time. We were ambassadors for the first time. It was wonderful. Go back to my blog and look at the pictures because I'm sure there won't be a conference with that many people in it ever again. But we got back on March 1st. So we were home for about a week and a half. And then that's basically when the world started shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
So
it did.
I always equate coming back from Roots Tech 2020 as the beginning of everything that happened with COVID. So we got home, and then like middle of March, the 15th or 16th is when the Family History Library announced that they were closing. And that's when I knew it was real.
Yeah.
It's like the library closing?
Yeah.
Not, NBA or MLB or all of that Disneyland. That had already closed. But when the Family History Library said, yeah, we closing, that, I had to clutch my pearls a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this before. We were out there in the, general area of where COVID was getting really bad first.
Correct.
And
with people from all over the world.
Yes, and we were in there shoulder to shoulder with people, sitting together and on a plane and, several planes.
International airports.
That was crazy. So we've talked about that before, so we're not going to belabor that point. But the point is that we didn't know what was getting ready to happen. And so, like Trisha said, we were excited. We had a good time. And I was, renewed and going to get started and, researching my own family. Yeah. And I found information at the Family History Library, and I was really excited. And then everything happened, and like,
what do you do?
I can't go to the library and research. And we have a
Family History Center.
A Family History Center here in town, but I can't go to it to use their computers.
Right. And with everything that was going on with all of the stuff on the news and hearing about, COVID every day, all day, for me, I didn't want to do any research. I wanted to come home and watch a comedy or a sitcom just to get my brain a rest. So honestly, the first few months of COVID, I didn't want to research. I didn't want to do anything. So I didn't. And that impacted my research, because that was, 3 or 4 months of me not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. And I took a bit of a break too, because my anxiety was like all-time high.
Yes.
And I know for a lot of people it was too, and way worse than mine. And so, I was just questioning everything, and, of course, staying in the house. I don't know if anybody stayed in the house more than I did.
No,
but,
I don't think so.
But anyway, yeah, so it impacted us and what we were doing. And if you go back and look at tweets from from 2020, you'll see like a timeline of people, okay, everything's shut down, we're going virtual and this and that. And then you got people who were having trouble with websites because so many people were on the web. It was impacting their servers and they couldn't find information. It was so
a
madhouse.
Much, because people were working from home, kids were doing digital learning, everybody was shopping online at this point. And so again, and I work in a medical lab, so I still had to go to work every day. And ultimately, the place that I work became a COVID testing center. So then, I was testing COVID patients. So when I get home, I literally, want to, decontaminate, take a shower, and rest my brain and do nothing. And that is exactly what I did for about 5 months. I didn't think of research, anything. I definitely didn't want to look at any death certificates. I just wanted to just come home and find something on TV that would make me laugh.
Yeah, and it impacted this podcast. We didn't do a podcast episode for I think from February to
September, maybe?
till January. I don't think we did.
Did we not any?
I don't
Maybe
think
we
we did one
didn't.
after Roots Tech.
No, you're right. No, I think you're right. And it affected my blog. That's basically, I used my Wordless Wednesdays just to be able to have something to post um, twice a month. And I would post pictures on my Wordless Wednesdays, but I wasn't giving out any content. I wasn't researching, so I didn't have anything to write about. So the only thing that thought that I could do was share family photos on my Wordless Wednesdays.
Yeah, I mean, this is just crazy. I don't, man. What I hope though is that this showed the everybody really, but specifically the genealogy community, how ill prepared we were for something like this,
Oh,
right?
definitely.
And so what I hope is was going to happen this year is that sites like Ancestry and National Archives and Family Search or whatever, they are like building up their servers and coming up with a disaster plan or anything like that, that they can just push a button, do a little this and that, and everything is okay for everybody to still use if something like this happens again.
Right. So towards the summer, I'm going to say July-ish because it was close to my birthday, I decided, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do some research and get to a library somewhere, even if it's for 20 minutes. I'm going to figure it out. So I went to one of my favorite repositories. It wasn't on my birthday, but it was around the time of my birthday in August. I went to the Butler Center of Arkansas Studies in Little Rock and did some research. But of course, we were still in COVID. So there were things that I had to do differently because, I just usually just show up and say, here I am, this is what I want to see. But this time around, I actually had to call them, make an appointment. I had to make my appointment 2 weeks in advance, is why I didn't actually get to go on my birthday. And then once they confirmed my appointment, they sent me an email and they told me that I needed to have everything that I wanted to look at. If it was a collection, if it was a book, if I wanted to do research on the computer, whatever it was, I had to have it written out in a document and send it to them a week before my appointment. So that, of course, made me get more organized than I usually am. So I had everything written down that I wanted and I emailed them, and then they responded to my email and said that once I get in, I had to get my temperature taken. I had to wash my hands. There was only one person allowed on the elevator at the time. And then once I was able to actually get to the research floor, I had to wash my hands again and get my temperature retaken. And then, and only then, was I able to see the information that I had requested. But the good thing was that they had everything already pulled for me in a box, waiting on me at a table that they had disinfected already that I could sit at. So usually I go in and I have to get one folder at a time, and then I have to take it back and get another folder. But this time I actually had the whole box of information that I wanted, and I could sit there at this table and look at it. And I only had an hour because that was the only time that they would allow you to be in there, was in 1 hour increments. But that felt so good to be in their library researching, and it seemed like things were going to be back to normal soon.
Yeah. So speaking of, as we start to hopefully get back to normal, even though as of right now, I don't think we should be, but that's another topic. But so let's talk about the future of genealogy research and how COVID is going to impact how we research in the future.
Well, can we start with how it impacted conferences and how conferences went virtual, and the fact that, we as genealogists, and I include myself in this, we are people. We like to be around people who research. We are very, happy-go-lucky. We want to see you. We want to talk to you. It's that interaction that we like. And so when all the conferences started going virtual, I was like, how is this going to work?
Yeah. And no one knew. It's like, how are you going to do this? Is it going to be, are you going to get the same content as you would in an in-person class? How is this going to work? It was new for everybody. And so we just figured it out on the fly. But
Literally.
yeah, I mean, when we left Roots Tech, I on the last day, I walked out and I talked to the Jenny vlogger, Jared. I was standing there talking to him, and we were talking about our YouTube channels and what we were doing, and and everything, which we need to get back going.
That's true.
But anyway, I was talking to him. Then we started talking about NGS because he had a class at NGS.
Yeah, that was the next big conference.
Right, and I think it was supposed to be in May. And we was trying to figure out, well, how can we get back to Salt Lake City
Right.
in May
To go to NGS.
and we were just there in February. That's
right. Logistically.
yeah, that was going to be hard to do, but we were trying to figure it out. Well, when COVID happened in March and NGS canceled their conference and went virtual, I attended their virtual conference.
Yes, COVID did give the opportunity, because everything went virtual, for us to be able to attend more conferences than we would have ever been able to attend in person.
Yeah, and so conferences were shutting down, and people was trying to figure out how to do this. And I think of the conferences that I attended, I think everybody did a pretty good job. And you couldn't be mad at people. I mean, it's just,
Everything was so new.
Yeah, you could only do what you could do, and it cost. Believe me, I know it cost a lot of money to put on a virtual conference. Now, is it as much as an in-person? No, because you don't have to deal with food vendors and the hotels and conference centers and all that stuff, but it still costs a lot of money. And you got a group of people who've never done this before. It makes it a lot more difficult than what you may think. So.
Right. But I was able to attend conferences that I, again, would have never been able to attend before. And a lot of it is because they were recorded. So I could sign up and register for a conference, even though it was in the middle of the week, but it was recorded. So then they would send me the link and I was able to watch it on the weekend. So although a lot of things went, bad in 2020, I will definitely say the fact that virtual conferences became the in thing, that really did help me, because there's so many conferences that I've been wanting to see, and speakers that I wanted to hear, and I've never been able to go to a lot of them, and I was able to attend quite a few conferences last year.
Yep. And so now we're up on anniversarying all of those virtual conferences, because NGS is going virtual again this year, and they were one of the first ones to go virtual. So anyway, okay, now we talked about conferences. Now let's talk about the future of genealogy research and how COVID may impact what you do. So I think that eventually, of course, everybody's going to open up like normal.
Right.
So you don't have to wear a mask and no temperature checks and all that stuff. And that would be fantastic. But I think people are going to be more, just attentive to what they're doing, what they're touching, cleaning, things here in the near future, right? That might not happen 5 years down the road, but so for this next year and a half, 2 years, I think everybody's going to be kind of on edge with, what they do when they finally
get somewhere. Yeah. And another thing is crowd size. True. If we're talking about conferences, libraries, places like that, there's no way I would feel comfortable going to Roots Tech if there was going to be 20,000 people there again. So there's that aspect of it also. And that's something that it's going to be hard for some people, because a lot of people go to be able to meet other genealogists, hopefully somebody who's researching the same thing that they are, to be able to bounce ideas off of and things like that.
Yeah, and the future of conferences is going to be good too.
Yeah, it's going to be different for sure.
It'll be good because now that these organizations know that they can do a virtual conference, they're going to get better and better and better doing it. There are going to be more companies that'll be there to help. And so I think let's talk a Roots Tech. So Roots Tech this year had their conference virtual. I think next year, 2022, I think they're going to have and go back to an in-person conference, but there's going to be a part that's virtual.
Right.
And so, some of the people who couldn't afford to fly to Salt Lake City and hotels and cars, and maybe they just can't because they physically can't go.
Yeah.
They'll be able to
attend.
and more people are able to attend the conference. The one that I was a part of back in October, in person, I think they only had like 600 people attend, something like that. But the virtual conference that they had thousands.
Right.
And so
they're learning that virtual conferences people are going to be attending. And I think that maybe that was a stigma or something that in the genealogy world that you have to be together. But I think that you're right. It's going to be more options for virtual / on demand type classes and things like that.
Yeah. You got anything else?
No, I'm excited because again, I enjoy going to the library. I like doing research and looking at census records and microfilm. And so I'm excited that the libraries are starting to open up more for longer time. And I've been doing research here in the last few months on my own on my computer using, the ancestries, the family search, things like that to be able to know what I wanted to look at when I go back to the library. So I'm super excited to be able to get in the library and get around books and microfilm because then I'll feel like I'm really researching and I'm not just at my kitchen table.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can get back to Salt Lake City for Roots Tech next year. Not only just for Roots Tech, but to be able to go to the library, family history library, and be able to look at some film and things like that. Because there have been a few things that are only on microfilm that I can't see. I have to be at the library to see. And
right.
So
everything's not online.
So I got to do that. But what I would encourage you all to do as you start to make your way back into these facilities is that even if you don't wear a mask in these buildings, I would encourage you just to make sure you maintain your distance still.
Yeah.
As much as people want to believe that, everything is getting better, people are still getting sick. People are, don't have the vaccine yet. The vaccine may not work for everybody. There's still things going on. This didn't just disappear. So I would encourage you just to be mindful, that, look out for your fellow American citizens and, care about somebody other than yourself. Does that mean?
It's not mean. No, it's not, because the truth of the matter is that, COVID was a horrendous disease that killed millions of people. I mean, that's just the facts. And although we are turning the page and we are coming to the end of it, never forget how it impacted our country and the people that lost their lives to this disease. And the way that we can prevent it is by wearing a mask and social distancing.
Washing your hands.
So I would encourage you to continue to social distance, continue to wear your mask when you're inside around people. And that includes when you're at the library, you're doing your research. If you are the only one in there, fine. But you see some people coming in, then, you scoot over to the edge, you put your mask on, you continue your research. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and we're planning to do all of that when we finally go back. And we're taking it a step further. And we're going to, disinfect tables that we're sitting at. If we're sitting at a public computer, disinfect the mouse and keyboard and the desk and chairs and all that good stuff. And because, you just never know. The library staff may not have time to, go and disinfect behind you. And so we take, in this house, we take COVID seriously.
We do.
And we don't take any chances right now. So
we want everyone to stay safe. We want everybody to be able to get back to normal whenever that is eligible for you. So, just think about yourself, think about others, and enjoy the research.
Yep. All right, guys, that's all we have for you today. If you like this episode, please go and like our podcast, subscribe to it, tell your family and friends about it. All of our social media and contact information will be in the show notes of this episode. And we really appreciate you guys. Please stay safe. Please take care of yourself and others.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Love the journey.